Hello everyone, today is 19th of February, now it's about 12 o'clock, middle of the day by Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. And even though days looks like a little slow news-wise, I did pick several news about some major developments for this update. Although before I start, let me notice, if I may, that this small media project, independent media project from Russia is completely subscriber funded. And if you like my work, if you like my channels and want to support her, you can do it through several means. You can donate to project through PayPal or Boosty platforms. You can subscribe to my Patreon page or page on Boosty, where I have quite a lot of extra content, hundreds and hundreds of videos at this point. And you can also support through crypto. All the links are on this video in description box and in the pinned comment. And many thanks to everybody who supported and continues to support this project and my work. Truly grateful. Let's talk about news now. And first of all, of course, I will start with yesterday's meeting between Russian and US delegations in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Of course, this meeting did major headlines all around the world. It was like a tsunami, isn't it, in the media field. Some people were happy that Russia and US are finally talking again. Some people were upset, especially in Europe, among so-called elites in Europe. And well, let's go through all of it now. There's so much to unpack. But we have first reactions from Russian side, first statements in regards to these talks. For example, official representative of Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, characterized yesterday's meeting between delegations of two major superpowers as a positive development. Let's translate this news for a little more detail. And by the way, I did share some short videos from that meeting yesterday, and also short videos from press conference that delegations had after the meeting. And I noticed that US delegation looked like it was hammered, by the way, in a good sense, because from what I read in Russian segment of media, analyzing all this news, I can come up with a conclusion that Russia did offer during these talks something that US delegation was not even dreaming about. Some very significant proposals were made, I believe, by Russian delegation, and US representatives were impressed big time. And definitely they need at least couple of weeks to process all the information that they receive, so that they will base next step of Washington on that. But I believe it was a monumental. I personally believe that it was a monumental development that happened in Riyadh yesterday. I don't know why some people were expecting some major agreements to come up of that meeting straight away. It was never the agenda of the meeting, right? It was just a first step. High-ranking delegations met. They shared information to give an opposite side the understanding of the framework or the architecture of resolutions for resolutions in many different areas that Russia and US might cooperate, not just Ukrainian crisis, but also many other directions. And as I already said, I got impression that US delegation was hammered with their news in a positive sense, with information, and they were actually they were shocked. That, I mean, if you take a look at the video, by the way, Rubio actually looks like he was struggling to process all the information that he just received. you know. Some positive, some negative, because obviously Russia's stance on many areas are very principled, and I guess Russian delegation remind U.S. counterparts that there is certain steps that Russia expects from U.S. if Washington is serious about de-escalation and potential future cooperation in different areas. But same time, Russia did, as far as I understand, offer some proposals that actually impressed, to say the least, U.S. delegation. Anyways, let's go through this news. Both Russia and the United States described their bilateral talks held in Riyadh yesterday in a positive and constructive tone. This was stated by the official representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, on Sputnik Radio. And then, quote, the most important thing is that the contact took place. The both sides describe it in a positive tone, in a constructive manner. Zakharova noted that these were not ordinary negotiations and not an ordinary meeting. The diplomats recalled that there were no contacts between the two countries for 3 years. That is, you can imagine two countries that are permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, which obviously play a special role in the world and which have always had such a larger number of things together, things to do, problems, questions, and so on. And there were no contacts because they were completely blocked by the previous administration in US. And yes, as Maria Zakharova noted, there is so much, really, so much to talk about between the sides, so many problems to resolve in bilateral relationships and also on a global stage. There is so many directions where cooperation between Washington and Moscow actually makes this world safer place. And so, yes, it was monumental, by the way. I also will characterize that meeting as something of a historical scale. And soon we will see first concrete results, first concrete steps made by countries, and first positive results that will come out from this meeting. Although obviously in upcoming weeks and months there will be more talks, more discussions, not just about Ukrainian crisis, because this is just one direction. There are many other areas where some true cooperation is needed to problems to be resolved. And by the way, when it comes to first sort of results, we already have that, which is that both countries agree, both delegations agree that as soon as possible work will be resumed in embassies of diplomatic missions of two countries, which is not really possible right now to be done in effective manner because all the restrictions that US imposed, and then Russia was forced to basically retaliate, and therefore diplomatic missions of Russia and US in the countries are in a very difficult situation, and they're almost unable to actually do their job. So sides agreed that in a very short time Russia and US will do whatever is necessary to make sure that diplomatic missions of two countries have all the opportunities to work and be useful to bring two countries together and to allow countries cooperate. So that's already some result, which is obviously good. Also, as I already said, by the way, Russian delegation obviously was well prepared, led by heavyweights, by the way. Lavrov was there, head of Russian Foreign Ministry, and obviously US delegation received some quite a load of information to work with, and Russian Foreign Minister once again reiterated that when it comes to Ukrainian crisis, Russia has some principal positions that will never change, and among these is absence of NATO troops in Ukraine. Russia will never agree NATO troops to be deployed there under whatever flag, under whatever pretext, it's not happening. Russia will see such a step as a hostile towards Russia, and appropriate measures will be taken. And I guess US somewhat on the same page here. US don't want their troops to be deployed, and US, as far as I understand, under current leadership, don't want any further escalation between Russia and the West, and Russia and the NATO. So no freezing of the conflict, no deployment of NATO troops under whatever pretext, no Ukraine's delayed secession to NATO, none of it. Right? This is out of conversation, all these topics. Some truly serious agreements have to be reached, and I'm quite sure Russian delegation shared with American counterparts enough information to work with. And so when next meetings will take place in upcoming days or weeks or whatever, sides will be able to work in some details at that point when it comes to Ukrainian crisis or any other issue that sides want to resolve. RT is also reporting that Lavrov himself commented obviously on meeting and said that Russia and US agree on Ukraine peace talks, which means that in upcoming shortly there will be additional meetings. Russia and US have agreed to establish a framework for ending a Ukrainian conflict in the near future. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has announced top Russian and US diplomats met in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday to explore ways to restore diplomatic ties, lay the groundwork for a summit between Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Donald Trump, and advance efforts towards resolving the Ukraine conflict. Lavrov led the Russian delegation, which also included Yuri Ushakov, Putin's top foreign policy aide, Kirill Dmitriev, the CEO of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, also took part in negotiation process. And by the way, this is also important because according to some news that come out from this conference, US delegation was surprised big time to receive information that US companies lost about $300 billion in last several years because they were ordered by Western ruling elites to leave Russian market. Can you imagine? US delegation didn't knew about it. I mean, that's why I'm saying, by the way, US delegation looked like hammered with all the load of information that they receive about different topics. But when it comes to this person, Dmitriev, CEO of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, looks like, according to some videos that come out from conference, according to some photos, looks like he has some connection with people that were present there from US side. He was actively communicating, and he himself stated after the meeting that one of the topics of discussion was actually cooperation of the US and Russia in Arctics, which is a big topic, obviously. In Arctics, cooperation may take place in the energy sector. Arctic is, of course, next El Dorado, one may argue. It's full of all the goods that world economy needs. And obviously, Russia is a major player in Arctic, and the US also wants to become a major player. Recent statements of Donald Trump about Greenland, about Canada, definitely indicates that whatever force is behind the Trump's administration, let's say group in the Western ruling class that prioritize US, it definitely seems like very keen to move into Arctic, to move US into Arctica. And in that field, there is, of course, a lot to talk about between Russia and US. Not just, as I said, not just development of some natural resources there, oil, gas, or whatever. I mean, you name it. Arctica is rich with everything. And also, by the way, it's a northern sea route. It's a northern sea route, which is going to become a major transportation route for this world in the next 20 to 30 years, maybe even earlier than that. Russia is actively working in development of Northern Sea route, and US can join. US actually can join, although US don't have their capable icebreakers that's still needed to organize safe passage of the vessels, especially during the winter time. But Russia has, by the way, a huge fleet of nuclear icebreakers. So US can bring something from its side to the table. Russia definitely can bring something, and there is a lot of ways that two countries can cooperate. And obviously, Arctic, as I said, man, it's next El Dorado in terms of natural resources, and Arctica is offering world next future main trade route for entire world, right? So it is good that sides talk about potential cooperation in this direction also, but US to be able to play key role in this regard, not the key role will be on Russia. Obviously US will partner with Russia, but to be able to do so, US needs Greenland. And US needs some rights when it comes to coastline of Canada. So Washington will have to deal with this issue. I guess it will be quite easy for US to force Denmark to let Greenland free. But when it comes to Canada, I don't know what is going to happen there. But Washington needs certain rights on the coastline of Canada to be a part of this northern maritime route. And I guess US has enough leverage over Canada to make something happen there in this regard. So interesting. It was, as I said, it was not just a Ukrainian crisis that sides discuss, but many other topics. And I mean, based on what I see, dear friends, videos, photos, US delegation was really impressed, to say the least. So good start, definitely good start. Meanwhile, by the way, Zelensky, this illegit so-called president of Ukraine, was in Turkey yesterday, and he was planning to go to Saudi Arabia. But I guess something happened. US delegation was not really keen to meet with Zelensky. And therefore, Zelensky announced that he has some changes in the plans, and he did not fly to Saudi Arabia, which is interesting. But he did complain a lot. And Trump was upset about it, and he expressed his disappointment. Let's go through this news here. So US President Donald Trump has expressed disappointment with Ukraine's leadership over its complaints that it was not invited to US-Russia peace talks in Saudi Arabia, suggesting that it has squandered opportunities to end the conflict on its own for years. Speaking to reporters after high-level talks in Riyadh on Tuesday, Trump was asked if he had a message for Ukrainians who may have felt betrayed or disappointed about not having a seat at the table. I am really disappointed. This is quote from Trump's statement. I am really disappointed in what's happened. I've been watching this for 3 years. I hear that they are upset about not having a seat. Well, they had a seat for 3 years, and a long time before that. Trump added that the conflict could have been settled very easily. A half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago without the loss of much land, very little land, without the loss of any lives, and without the loss of cities, he said. Asked whether the US would support elections in Ukraine, Trump suggested that Ukraine's leadership should consider it. Would not the people of Ukraine have to say, it's been a long time since we've had an election? US president went on to claim without citing sources, that Vladimir Zelensky's approval rating is 4%. The Ukrainian leader's presidential term ended last May and refused to hold the new elections. And by the way, I don't know about 4%, but I remember Anatoly Shary, Ukrainian journalist, public figure, and politician in exile. He lives somewhere in Europe, by the way, in collective West. Some time ago, he stated that Zelensky's approval rating, according to his information, is about like 12-14%. If I remember correctly, that's what his numbers was. And this is like at least 3-4 months ago. Now that number could be significantly lower, obviously. But someone did brief Trump, isn't it? U.S. Secret Services, U.S. State Department probably briefed him about the approval rating of Zelensky. And, well, 4%, that's quite stuff, isn't it? That's quite stuff. So, yes, Trump takes no shots, by the way, from that clown, bloody clown Zelensky, obviously. And I guess U.S. is in difficult situation now. As Russian former president and current deputy chairman of Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, stated like a day or two ago, I mean, Western elites, U.S. leadership, basically, Western ruling class that prioritize U.S., and the U.S. political class itself, administration of Trump, is in difficult situation now because they have to make some difficult choices because they are facing situation when a rabid farm animal is now biting its owner's hands, right? That's what Zelensky does. And what happens with the rabid farm animals? We all know that. So therefore, U.S. obviously is in a situation when some difficult decisions have to be made. They have to remove Zelensky one way or another. And if they somehow struggle to force Zelensky to appoint elections as soon as possible, then I guess something will happen. Coup d'etat or something. The U.S. has plenty of means to deal with this situation. So they will orchestrate something to remove Zelensky one way or another, and elections will be appointed so that some other figure that U.S. will choose, not London, not Brussels, but U.S. will choose, will end up in a position of power there in U.S. And I guess that person eventually will sign up on whatever agreements will be reached between Moscow and Washington, right? As it was already said by US high-ranking officials, by Russian high-ranking officials, EU is out of conversation. EU has no seat around the table when Ukrainian crisis is discussed. It's a matter between big boys, right? Big bosses will decide, Washington and Moscow. But Washington first and foremost have to deal with that rabid farm animal that is biting its owners now. RIA Novosti is reporting that, well, I already mentioned that Zelensky did not fly to Saudi Arabia from Turkey. I guess, really, I mean, it was a 4.5 hour negotiations between Russian and US delegations. I guess representatives of US were busy processing all their information that they just received, and they did not really had the time or didn't really wanted to now speak to Zelensky, by the way. Who the hell is Zelensky, man? Come on now. So therefore, they pass on that, and Zelensky stated that it's his decision that he's not flying to Saudi Arabia. Okay, who cares? RT is reporting that, well, Ukrainian migrants face increased scrutiny in the US, according to media reports. So the US Citizenship and Immigration Service, US CIS, has reportedly halted their processing of the applications for benefits by migrants who entered the country under the special programs established during the Joe Biden's presidency. This action, which affects tens of thousands of Ukrainians, effectively closes off avenues to other protection statuses, CBS News reported on Tuesday. So, some difficulties for Ukrainian refugees in US. The previous administration utilized presidential parole to grant legal entry to specific groups deemed vulnerable or available to the US. President Donald Trump suspended these programs upon taking office last month. Their initiative, designed for Ukrainians, known as Uniting for Ukraine, allowed more than 117,000 individuals to enter the US by mid-2023. For this moment, this number is probably significantly higher. Although, of course, majority of Ukrainian refugees are in Russia, 3 to 5 million, by the way. Although many Ukrainians that enter Russia are applying for citizenship, and they are getting Russian citizenship in a faster way, without some much bureaucracy. And also millions and millions of Ukrainian refugees obviously entered Europe and are still there. But hundreds of thousands went to US, and some of them will face some difficulties now with the bureaucracy. TASS news agency is also reporting that EU, by the way, which is in hysterical mode right now, because obviously Brussels bureaucrats, so-called elites in Europe, are not happy that they've been sidelined this directly, by the way, this publicly. They've been publicly humiliated by US, right? And they are going crazy. And every single day, every single hour, some high-ranking official in Europe does make some crazy nonsensical statements. Total meltdown, by the way, is happening. And first of all, you know that there was a meeting in Paris between that French president, so-called president, and at that meeting, according to some reports, that meeting was total failure, and leaders of some countries almost fight there. Because UK and some other countries, France included, are all for further escalation with Russia, including deployment of troops. Especially UK is leading this charge towards further escalation, while other countries, Germany, Spain, even Poland, by the way, not that keen to enter war with Russia. All right. After all, Germans and Poles know that war with Russia never gonna end well for them, or for anybody that will dare to fight, right, against Russia. But that was not enough for Macron. Seems like he called again for additional meeting, and now some other European countries leadership of some other European countries gonna get together in Paris and talk about ways that they can escalate with Moscow. Okay, let them try, by the way, but they are hysterical. Going crazy, and Brussels, for example, now coming out with their statements that they're gonna deliver to Kiev regime 1.5 million shells, artillery shells, in 2025. They're gonna intensify military aid. Thousands of pieces of equipment and this and that, all nonsense, by the way. They are now giving promises that they know for sure they cannot deliver on, right? But that's what hysteria does, by the way. They don't know what to do at this point. And by the way, they don't even have much to actually offer to this terrorist regime in Kiev, because many NATO member states quite effectively demilitarize themselves. And for example, La Stampa, by the way, Italian media outlet, is reporting that Italy's air defense systems now are struggling big time because they are left without almost any missiles, interceptor missiles. How crazy is that? Because almost everything they got was transferred to Kiev regime. Let's translate at least this sentence here for a little more details. And I guess somewhat similar situation is in many other countries, by the way. You remember when Fico's government take office in Slovakia, ministers, by the way, of Fico's government were shocked, especially defense minister, when he went through all the materials, all this, when he met the situation in defense ministry, in our forces, he was shocked. And he openly said that Slovakia is demilitarized. Previous government that was extremely Russophobe and was sending literally everything to Kiev regime, they demilitarized Slovakia, and Slovakia almost was left without any weapons at all. That's how bad situation was. And many other countries, by the way, now Italy, no air defense systems. Okay. No one is attacking Italy. We all get that. But still, by the way, if you have air defense systems, then you should have a capable one, right? As the newspaper wrote, sir, we are talking particular about American Stinger anti-aircraft missile systems, which were transferred to Ukraine at the insistence of United States. Italian authorities tried to replenish their supplies by placing an order from American manufacturer for 800 million, but the previous US administration of Joe Biden vetoed the sale, considering that this type of weapon was more necessary for other allies. Excuse me, dear friends. So, well, okay, yet again, no one is attacking Italy, and therefore maybe it's not that crucial at this point to have a proper air defense systems, but as long as you have such a forces, air defense force, you should have a capable one, right? But well, according to what is the name of that paper, La Stampa, well, Italy's air defense forces quite effectively demilitarized themselves. So much weapons were sent to Kiev regime. Also, dear friends, EU, out of this desperation and hysteria, is stating that they're going to continue the sanction war against Russia regardless of US position. EU has no plans to lift sanctions against Russia, even if US decides to do so, and is working on the next raft of the measures. EU Commissioner Vladis Dombrovskis has stated, and by the way, they already, according to some reports, EU member states ambassadors did agree on 16th package of sanctions against Russia, which will be introduced shortly, I guess. And this 16th package of sanction is including aluminium, ban on aluminium imports from Russia for EU member states, which will hammer number of dozens and dozens of companies, by the way, inside the EU that already are struggling and are looking for ways to move their manufacturing plants to US, for example. And looks like these idiots in Brussels, in bureaucracy of EU, have no care about all the damage that they are doing to European economies, European social fabric. They want this hostility towards Russia to continue. They are extreme Russophobes, and they will sacrifice literally everybody in Europe to hurt Russia at least a little bit. They will sacrifice literally everybody, and it is time for Europeans to wake up and say, you know what, enough is enough. We have had enough of you, and now just F off before we will put you down like rabid animals. That's what European people should say to these corrupt, insane so-called politicians that are running and ruining Europe. I mean, it is the time, by the way. It's even late, very late, but it's better to do whatever is necessary to save your country, your people, late, but than never, right? So European people should act, man. Should act. How long they gonna take this nonsense from these garbage individuals that think they are, they know better how people should live in Europe, and how people should operate. Oh man, this nonsense has to stop. But anyways, we all understand EU bureaucracy, leadership of EU member states, majority countries are extreme Russophobes, are in panic mode. They've been sidelined publicly, humiliated publicly by US. They are hysterical, and by the way, dangerous also. We should keep that in mind too, because after all, they are formally, at least, in charge of countries, state institutions, including secret services, and they can try, and they will try, by the way, to come up with some provocations, some false flag operations, terrorist attacks, to somehow derail talks between Russia and US, so that they will, because they won't keep US in this fight against Russia, because they know without US they are nobodies. They are simply nobodies, these so-called elites in Europe. Anyways, dear friends, this is it for now. Relatively shorter update. Hopefully you will find it informative, interesting, and useful. And if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary. As you know, this is the only way, likes and comments, only way we have to at least try and influence algorithm. It is a long time, isn't it, when we last time managed to actually influence algorithm, when my videos were showing in recommendations. But yet again, at least we can try, isn't it? And so yes, if you can, please click that like button, leave some commentary, share videos or information about my channel with your friends on internet or in real life. And if you like my work, if you like these channels, and if you want to support, you can do it through several means. All the links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care.